Welcome back to Groove Diner After Dark. It occurs to me that I never introduced myself. I'm your host, Buddy Gibbons. Hey, what about that? Why am I wearing a winter coat when I live in Southern California and it's been 75 degrees? Because there's a mighty chill in the air called the Grammys. They were last night. We kind of love to hate the Grammys, don't we? It's a really interesting thing to me to see all the posts on social media. Oh my gosh, the Grammys were the greatest thing ever. The Grammys were the worst thing ever. Beyonce should have won everything. Beyonce shouldn't have won anything. We won't even talk about that. But it's interesting to me how music imprints on us. Music imprints on us at a particular age, 12 to 15. That's the greatest music that there ever was. And some people were really upset about Bonnie Raitt winning. And more people were upset that people didn't know who Bonnie Raitt was. But it occurred to me that something like Bonnie Raitt, who is an amazing artist, someone for whom I have great respect, might not be appealing to a younger generation in kind of the same way that a kid of the 80s, for instance, might not know who Fabian was from the 50s. So we've got to be willing to give and take and realize that music changes just like we do, just like life does. And the music of today, oh my gosh, there's so much talent, so much great stuff out there. I don't like it all, but it doesn't take long to find so much good music. And the Grammys, they have a lot of stuff that I do like. Some stuff I don't. And that's the way it's always been. It's the way it's always going to be. So why don't we try to make the most out of it and learn from generation to generation? Figure out what it is that kids like, that older people like, and let's try to find the value in all of it. I just totally dig that as a life idea. Let's try to do that together. Tonight, our guest is Richard Grossman, the bass player for Rick Springfield. Come on! We're getting closer and closer to having Rick on the show. Rick, if you're watching, we want you on the show. Come be on the show. We'll be back right after this. The all-new GrooveDinerAfterDark.com is your home for all the things that groove. Watch live episodes, visit the archives, check out the YouTube channel, learn more about your host. Own some merchandise. We've got it all under one roof. Updates will continue to roll out throughout the season, including video drum lessons, industry coaching, production tips, and much more. Tune in for the show, then visit the website each and every week so that you can answer that most important question. Do you groove? Obviously you groove, because here you are at Groove Diner After Dark. And tonight's episode is actually all about groove. It's so fun to do an episode with a bass player who talks about interacting with drummers. We talk to drummers constantly. Getting a different perspective, that's what this one tonight is all about. I think you're going to really enjoy getting to know Richard Grossman and hearing his stories about a really amazing career that he's had and how he likes to play along with drummers and what he looks for in drummers. Hopefully one day I can be one of those that he actually likes to play along with. Maybe I can learn a few things from him too. So let's jump right in and listen to Richard playing with Chet mcCracken. The groove is just ridiculous. Let's roll it. Rolling. Welcome to Groove Diner After Dark. Tonight's guest, Richard Grossman. Richard and I just met tonight, actually, but we've known each other via social media. What a great thing social media has become, right?
It's amazing.
It's terrible and wonderful all at the same time.
Overall, I think it's great.
Yeah, I do too, because I get a chance to sit here and talk with people like you,
Yeah.
Which I certainly would not have the opportunity to do otherwise.
Right, unless we met on a gig.
Right, which why haven't we met on a gig?
I don't know.
We should
We've got to make that happen.
Yes, we should. We absolutely should. Rich is a bass player extraordinary. You're one of the few bass players that I know that is a dedicated, I love to play bass kind of person.
I do.
So often bass players seem to want to put their fingers in so many other things, but you're a bass player.
I'm a bass player. I write, I sing, but I leave, like when I work with groups, I lead the lead singing up to the guys that are like really good, that have like a great radio voice and a presence.
Sure.
I sing harmony.
Sure.
And I'm really comfortable with my role.
Sure. I get that more than you know. I'm a harmony singer. Mm-hmm. You don't want me singing lead ever. Mm-hmm. But I don't have that voice, but I can blend with anybody.
Well, there's a certain quality and a certain sound that is radio friendly.
That's right.
And I just don't naturally have that.
Nor do I.
I never developed it.
Nor did I.
Yeah.
That's funny. I love other harmony singers because we're kind of a brotherhood or a sisterhood,
Yeah. And then I know, and I've worked with some of the finest background singers in the business. Marcy Levy, who goes by Marcella Detroit now, from Shakespeare's Sister, but she wrote Lay Down Sally and a bunch of other Clapton songs and sang all over Clapton's stuff. She's is a very good friend of the mother of my kids.
Right.
And, we've been friends for probably about 40 years. Wow. And she's mostly made a living as a background singer and writer.
Sure.
And then Rosemary Butler from Jackson Browne and James Taylor. Same thing. Wow. Amazing voice, but main thing is background singer. And I've recorded with her and played live with her. And it's like, she's phenomenal.
Sure.
But both of these girls are like, where have they really shined?
Yeah.
As background singers.
That's an unbelievable story.
So there's nothing wrong with it.
Right. I assume you've seen 20 Feet from Stardom.
I mean, I've worked with Tata Vega, too.
Well, there you go. So, if you haven't seen that, you must go watch it. 20 Feet from Stardom. It's a fantastic documentary about background singers.
And Tata is in there. She's an amazing singer, lives here in the San Fernando Valley.
Judith Hill is in that.
What's that?
Judith Hill is in it.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, but Tata shows up there as a background singer with Elton John. And she's tremendous.
Well, before we started rolling cameras, we were talking a bit about your life growing up in the theater.
Yeah.
And in your bio says you were touring since birth. I'd love to hear that story again, this time so that they can hear it. So
I was, I always say I was a theater brat. I was born into a theatrical family. My mother was a ballet dancer from American Ballet Theater.
That's amazing.
Her partner back in the day was Jerome Robinson, who choreographed West Side Story and Fiddler on the Roof. My mom was 5'2" at her tallest, and Jerome was in the mid 5-foot range, and they were shorter. They got paired up together. They left American Ballet Theater, and a whole group of them went over to a Broadway show because one person had made the leap because the money was better.
Sure.
And that Broadway show was a show called High Button Shoes that my father was the company manager for that show. Mm-hmm. And that's where my parents met. And then when I was born, I was the second born to my parents. The firstborn, my parents printed up theater tickets. And for my older brother, it was a theater tickets with their name and that they present Our Guy. And then I was born and it was same production company and all with another guy. So it was always performance and theater and being around stages. And my dad had Gentlemen Prefer Blondes when my brother was born, Guys and Dolls when I was born, and then My Fair Lady when I was 4 years old. He took that. and took it all over the world, and took it to Russia in 1960 during the Cold War.
That's
and we were hearing great Cold War stories about what happened when they went over there. They took apart the electrical lighting boards that they brought over from the States. And because they hadn't seen this kind of technology in Russia at the time, when they got there, everything was dismantled and they were taking pictures of it all.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then I was hearing the stories about, a guy in in a hotel lobby, they'd see someone with a newspaper and it would come down and go up. It was like all the classic stuff you hear
literally
about.
watching a spy
But
movie.
they were being watched like crazy because they didn't know who to trust and stuff. So I grew up like that. I grew up on trains, traveling all over the country on trains.
You're based out of New York.
Based out of New York. We lived in New York. Then we moved to Chicago. When My Fair Lady moved to Chicago, we moved to Chicago. And then when My Fair Lady moved here to LA, that's when I got transplanted here.
And you've been here ever since.
I've been here ever since. I was 6 years old when that happened. And, I've had time away. I moved up for a while to Oregon and hung out in the Northwest in the 70s, being, going to get my head together, man.
Of course.
I'm going to go up north and get my head together. But
Did it work?
No. Actually, when I was up there, I ended up playing with a band up there where I was the hot kid from LA. I was like 21 years old.
Nice.
And these guys were all in their late 20s and even early 30s.
Sure.
But I was playing with them because anybody else I played with was like, just didn't live up to it.
Right.
And then I came back for the holidays and went in the studio to hear some friends recording. And I was like, this is where I got to be.
Yep.
This is where I got to be. So I came back.
Right.
Yeah.
And that led you to?
That led me to actually ended up putting another band together with some other guys because I was working with these old friends of mine and doing stuff and then in and out, but it wasn't consistent.
Sure.
I was doing odd jobs like most people do, but I was constantly writing, constantly playing, constantly working with people. And I learned back then the concept of shoot anything that moves. If someone said, do you want to do this project? I said, yes.
Yes.
And then I found out what it was later, and then I learned the phrase. I think I spoke too soon. I don't think I'm the right guy for this.
Right.
And so I was doing that kind of stuff and demo sessions, and I mean it used to be back in the 70s up and down Ventura Boulevard, pretty much between Sherman Oaks and Universal City.
Yeah.
You could make a living doing demos.
Is that right?
And that's what I did most of the time.
Wow.
I did that and I played all sorts of dates everywhere, projects everywhere.
Yeah.
I remember in the 70s, first time I played with a project at the Troubadour, I felt like I arrived.
Oh, I would think so. Yeah.
And it was like that was really a lot of fun. And I just kept going and kept doing stuff. And then funny thing, these same guys that I went in the studio that heard that I said, I got to move back here. And we were doing stuff on and off. Next thing you know, we try to put something else together. And these are guys I knew from junior high school.
Oh, no kidding.
And then next thing you know, we get signed to Electra Asylum.
No kidding.
And we were managed by Freddie DeMann.
Okay. I don't know.
Freddie DeMann had a firm called Wisner and DeMann. They, when we first got them, they had a little group called the Jackson Five.
Okay.
And then they had Dr. John and Gladys Knight and the Pips and a few other people.
Kind of just scrubs
right.
on their roster.
And then all of a sudden, Michael Jackson's first album comes out. And he had Michael, and that took off. And we're like, oh, cool. Freddie's in the good spot. Boom, we get signed with Electric Asylum.
Right.
And a bunch of great songs. Yeah. Two of the guys that were, of the three lead singers on that, two of the guys were from Beatlemania.
No kidding.
One of the guys did the movie.
Yeah.
As Beatlemania as John Lennon.
Okay.
The other guy was in the National Touring Company as well and did the Paul McCartney.
That's fantastic.
Was an actual left-handed bass-playing Paul McCartney. Really? He's gone on. He's worked with Jan Hammer and Styx, and he does his own thing. His name is Glenn Burtnick, phenomenal singer. That's the McCartney guy.
Sure.
The other guy was David Leon, who did the John Lennon thing. And so I went to school with him and another guy, Paul Trugman,
Okay.
who is a great songwriter. He lives up in the Santa Cruz area. He does a solo thing and plays guitar and with some tracks and does his own thing and just is enjoying life up there,
Nice.
you know. So we kept doing stuff. So we finished our album. When we got taken in, when we went into the studio, our drummer choked. We were taken into Alan Zent's recording off of La Brea and Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
We were taken in there, and we were going in the nighttime because Freddie swung us a good deal.
Of course.
Because the Jacksons were in there during the day.
There you go.
They were recording their Destiny album.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd pass them in the hall, coming in and out. And so we did the album, and through all the recording, our drummer was dropping his sticks. You'd hear this killer track grooving away, and all of a sudden you'd hear and all this noise, and then he'd pick it up and keep it going, which you can get away with live, but not on a recording. And this was before Pro Tools.
Yeah, you can even kind of do it now if you had to.
Yeah, it was before Pro Tools, so it wasn't as easy to copy and paste a section and replace it. So we decide, the producer says, we're going to recut the stuff. We're going back to Gary Brandt's studio in the Valley where we cut your demos that got you the deal. The sound was great. Mm-hmm. And he said, we're either bringing in Gary Ferguson, who was playing with Eddie Money, or Chet McCracken, who was playing with the Doobie Brothers. Yep. We brought in Chet. Mm-hmm. Chet and I became fast friends. Mm-hmm. I played with Chet on and off forever after that.
Yeah, in fact, I have in my little my list of notes here about you playing with him because some of the video clips you sent over. First of all, what a great drummer! Oh, and the compositions were fantastic, and the way that you leaned into what he's playing as the bass player. Yeah, I just loved it.
Oh, we had a real symbiotic thing going on. It was wonderful. Yeah, and dear Chet, I miss him dearly. He just passed away earlier this year.
I knew that.
And what a sweetheart of a man. Yeah. What a wonderful guy. What an amazing drummer. Mm-hmm. So we record the album with Chet, and we did it in like 3 days.
Of course.
And he and I, this was in a home studio. It was a 24-track studio, and he and I were in the kitchen where the drums were set up, and I had a little Ampeg B15. We're in there with headphones, and they're going over it and helping to cue them with dynamics and stuff. We had a great time cutting it. And then afterwards, the band goes, uh-oh. I go, what? They go, it sounds so good. Now we got to get a drummer that can do that. So Chet gives me a whole list of guys.
Of course.
And I mean, Pat Mastelotto, Jack Bruno, Jack White are the names that come to mind real quick. Sure. Well, Jack White remembered me. Nice. And he called me up a few months after we had auditioned the drummers. Mm-hmm. He goes, "Hey, Rich, are you still working with Helmet Boy?" That was the name of the band, which we had a good laugh about.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Typewriters signing that up, with the secretaries. And they said, "Used to work with." I said, "Coincidentally, the band just broke up 2 weeks ago. Why?" He goes, "You ever hear this guy Rick Springfield?" And I went, "I don't know. Sounds kind of familiar." He goes, "Yeah, he had this song that was out, about 5 years ago. It was a hit, and I was touring with him then." He says, "Yeah, want to come out and check it out?" I go, "Sure, where are you rehearsing?" Mm-hmm. He goes, "You know where Sound City is?" I go, and at the time I didn't. Right, okay. I said, "No, I don't." He goes, "Oh, it's out by Roscoe and Sepulveda, and I'll give you the address. It's easy to find." Right. So I go out there, we go to the rehearsal studios, and that's how I met and got the gig with Rick.
How about that?
Yeah, just by him remembering, here's a singing bass player who had a good groove.
Yeah, I mean, so you've just I buried the lead a little bit intentionally about you having been with Rick Springfield. Yeah. Because as you know, I ask the question of what's your favorite Rick Springfield song at the end of every one of these. That started out as something of, not a joke, but I'm a pretty big Springfield fan. Okay. So I liked asking people of all different age groups, people that may or may not have even ever heard of him, if they had heard of him. And without fail, everybody's heard Jesse's Girl, without fail, right? And often that's the default answer to what's your favorite Rick Springfield song. But I always push a little, and I definitely want to come back to that with you.
I'm in the video of Jesse's Girl, and I've done everything for you.
So good.
And that's all lip sync.
Right, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
We did some live TV. We did the Spirit of America Spectacular.
Oh, I remember this, yeah.
July 5th, 1981.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look that up. You know that, right?
Huh?
I'm gonna have to find that. You know that, right? See if it's out there
Yeah,
on the web.
yeah,
somewhere.
that's out there.
It's
And
gotta be.
the interesting thing was that we opened. We were the opening act. They had the whole stage set up. Everything was modular. Each stage was modular. So our stuff was just on carts and wheels and a
Sure,
small
of
little
course.
drum riser. And then off stage right, another riser came out, and it was Pablo Cruz.
No kidding.
Then off stage left, another full riser came out, and it was Three Dog Night. And then that got pulled away, and they moved up, and then it was the Beach Boys. So that was a fun show.
I have to just take a minute with that.
Yeah.
That's really a lot of serious quality music going on.
Yes, it was really great, and it was a lot of fun. And I had been a huge Three Dog fan.
Well, that's
I loved
convenient.
them.
Yeah, right?
So, and they're on it, and I'm like, oh, cool. I've always loved them.
Yeah.
And it's all the original guys except for Mike Seifert on bass.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm just really digging it. Now, we went on, and that was live. Okay. There was a 60 cycle hum
Of course.
in the house and the monitors. And we had to start because it was live on TV.
Right.
Now, for those who don't know, is what a 60 cycle hum sounds like.
It's just
And it
not
was
pretty.
loud,
Yeah.
very present in the monitors. So that's right in the vocal range. It was very hard to hear. And that was our first live show.
Really.
And there were 70,000 people there in front of the Queen Mary.
Oh my gosh.
It was our first live show, and we're like, okay, here we go.
are, yeah.
But fortunately, we'd all played and gigged enough over our lives, so
Sure.
we're like, and we rehearsed like crazy,
Right.
you know. So we did okay.
I'm
The
sure you did.
vocals sounded shaky because you couldn't hear.
Good here. Yeah, of course.
But aside from that, that was fun. And then coincidentally in my life, what happened after that was a little while after that, Rick's new management wanted to change his band.
As happens. Yeah.
And Mike Seifert from Three Dog Night got the gig with Rick, and I got the gig with Three Dog.
With 3 Dog Night. Just swapped gigs.
Yeah, we basically swapped gigs. He called me up. He goes, Rich, I'm sorry about what's going on. I said, hey, it's the business.
Right.
He goes, here's Corey Wells' number. Give him a call. I called him up. He said, we'd love to have you call our production manager. You know, come on down and audition. I walked into SIR on Sunset.
Yeah.
Walked into the room. We started playing. We played one. We played a little bit of something else. Corey stopped. He goes, come here. He goes, you want the gig? You got it.
Nice.
I go, really? He goes, yeah.
Yeah.
He says, you help control the groove with this band. And he said, Floyd, the drummer, who is a phenomenal drummer,
Sure.
so creative.
Sure.
He said, he's such a powerhouse.
Right.
He just needs a little bit of guidance staying in the lanes, and you've got that.
Man, that's an incredible compliment.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And so I took the gig.
Yeah. And how long did you do the Rick Springfield gig? How long did you do the 3 Dog Night gig?
I started working with Rick in 1980 and rehearsing with him. And then did all the TV and touring in 1981. And then started with Three Dog in 82.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then for how long with
82, 3, and 4.
okay. Well, those are some peak years for both of those acts.
Yeah, it was a little bit of the comeback trail for Three Dog. Yeah, it was like we played some nice big shows, and they were managed by the same people that the Beach Boys are.
Okay.
So we did a lot of shows, and if you've seen the Elvis movie that's out,
I haven't yet.
okay, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, they talk about Tom Hewlett,
Right.
who was with Concerts West.
Right. I know that
And-
name.
Huh?
Yeah, I know his name.
And Tom Hewlett and Jerry Weintraub owned Concerts West, and that's who managed Three Dog Night, the Beach Boys. They booked everybody. Neil Diamond, the Beach Boys, Barbra Streisand, Frank Sinatra, Elvis, and just a few small names in the biz.
And nobody that matters
Yeah.
much.
In fact, our road manager was dating Jerry Weintraub's secretary. And I was dating a girl who loved Neil Diamond. And
Yeah.
Neil was going to be at the Forum. I said, can you see if she can get us tickets?
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, sure. We get tickets. We show up front row center.
Of course.
And I wasn't a big Neil Diamond fan
Right.
because it turned me off when he said, I'm as good a writer as Lennon and McCartney. But when I mean, now I've learned to appreciate his writing skills, his craftsmanship.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that show, his voice is so powerful live, he blew my mind. And he was a great performer as well.
Sure. I can imagine.
Now, here I was used to working with Rick, who's really dynamic, if you've ever seen Rick live.
I have.
He's a spitfire ball of energy and a lot of fun. He likes to goof.
Right.
Rick goes for the goof mid-show. He loves that.
Right.
And then with Three Dog Night, Corey Wells was always like the consummate showman, just pistol, ripping it up. So I'm used to like working off that kind of energy, you know? And I blew my mind just how good Neil Diamond was. I was like, wow, man, he commands an audience like Rick or Corey or Bruce Springsteen. I mean, he's really a great performer.
You know, it's funny. I had a similar, you're going to think this is crazy. Ricky Martin did that to me.
Okay.
I didn't want to go see Ricky Martin, but my wife, we got tickets. We were guests of somebody and we went, and I was literally mesmerized for 2 hours
Nice.
at how good he was on stage. And I don't know that I've ever seen anybody have an audience in the palm of their hand quite like he did.
Yeah.
It was something to behold. You had to just let it wash over you. And I have this huge respect for him as an artist because of seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah. When a performer really commands their performance and embraces the crowd, that says a lot.
It really does. It's also why it's so important to go see live music.
Yeah.
Groove Diner After Dark, the store. Get your official Groove Diner merchandise by visiting our new store at groovedinerafterdark.com. Coffee mugs, long sleeve shirts, t-shirts, pint glasses, stickers. Now you can show your support of Groove Diner After Dark from head to toe. Simply visit our website or click the link in this video description and get your gear today. Thank you for your support.
I got to tell you, I'm chuckling over here because of something Toby Simmons just said. And hello to Toby. That Rick Springfield rips his shirt off at the end of shows. And nice abs. Excellent. If I'm 70 years old and I can do that, I would do that too. That's all I'm saying, Toby. I don't blame you for digging on that. That's cool. Welcome everybody that's here. Charles Anderson from South Africa. I see you here. I see Reggie Doss from Texas. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I think I saw Barry Halevi from North Carolina. Well, wherever you are around the world, be sure you tune in and give us a comment and let us know you're here and watching. I always enjoy seeing new people. Who have I seen over here recently? The Sean Murphy Journal. Thank you for joining us, the Sean Murphy Journal. That's quite a name. I'd love to know more about the Sean Murphy Journal, to be honest with you. Now I'm quite curious as to what the Sean Murphy Journal is. I saw some new people over on Twitch as well. Diggs, by the way, 7. By the way, glad you're here, my friend. Nice to see you here. Everybody that's here tonight, we really appreciate you and your time. Justin Scheidling here from New York City. There he is, right there. And Jordan Grossman, Rich's son. Nice to see you here. Rich is here as well. So if you've got a question specifically for Rich, be sure to hit him up because he's here to answer your questions. It's been a real pleasure for me to have Rich in the studio. And as you could hear, we really got along great so quickly. And his stories are so much fun for me. I have a Rick Springfield story I want to tell. Back when I was in high school, Rick Springfield had come to the Jackson, Mississippi Auditorium. And I'm wondering, Richard, if you were playing that show. But my mom wouldn't let me go because it was a Sunday night and I had to go to church. And I think, to this day, I could have gone to church the next week. But I only got one shot at seeing Rick Springfield in the 80s. Come on. But oh well, that's the way it works out sometimes, I guess. I don't know. I'm hearing more over here. What do we have over here? Richard saying hi to his son. That's a good thing. Always, always, always. Patrick Simmons, are you related to Patrick Simmons of the Doobie Brothers? Are you talking to me? Probably not. You're asking Toby if she is. Toby, are you related? That's a good question. Interesting. Ron DeBuccio. What's up, Ron DeBuch? How you doing, man? Welcome in from the Valley right here in Southern California. It's really fun for me to know this little community of people that get together and chat on Monday nights. It's always so much fun. We have a new YouTube channel, Groove Diner After Dark. Be sure you follow us, sign up, and give us a like and a subscription there. That really helps us out a lot. I know you know that already. We really do appreciate it so much, though. It helps us keep doing this sort of stuff. I want to say a quick thank you to Richard for his time and for the stories that are yet to come. There's going to be some more fun in just a few minutes. Jordan, it says, Jordan is an amazing drummer. Of course he is. His dad's a bass player. You know Mick Mahan, I think. Mick Mahan is the bass player for Pat Benatar, and his son Mike, great drummer. I played with Mick for years and years. I don't play with Mick anymore because his son plays with him now. He doesn't need me. He's got his kid. Is that just a thing? Bass players breed drummers? Maybe that's it. I don't know. Toby says, no, she's not related to Patrick's, but good friends with MB Gordy, the drummer for the Doobies. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Toby knows everybody. I don't think there's anybody. Richard, what's up, my brother, says Ron DiBuccio. Guys, I guess you guys know everybody. I guess you guys know each other. That's very, very nice. I dig that. We're going to go back into a little bit more of the interview now, and we've got another 20 minutes of this. You're definitely going to want to stick around for this. This is so much fun where we take the interview from here. There's a reason we broke it right at this moment, and there's going to be some fun little moments for you. Let's take a look here. We're going to have Richard playing with Three Dog Night, getting us back into the next part of the interview. I'll see you on the other side of it. Yeah, you're playing with Littlefish, your duo and or trio. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do that. That Littlefish can be done as a duo. It can be done as a trio, done as a 4-piece, as a 6-piece. We've done it with all sorts of stuff. We have just great, great players. Littlefish is with a gentleman named Jeffrey Passetto.
Okay.
Jeff was signed to Quincy Jones. He won a songwriting contest out of.
With Quincy Jones?
Yes, he won a songwriting contest when he lived in Baltimore.
That's really intense. That's incredibly talented.
Yeah.
That's high praise. All right.
Yeah.
That obviously made me stumble. That's such a big deal.
So Jeff, first time I ever went to rehearse with this band, and some guy told me about, he's a really talented, gifted, prolific writer. And I'm like, okay, great. I've heard that before.
Sure.
I go into this living room rehearsal. He's just got an acoustic guitar, and he's singing. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then I leave, and I call my girlfriend. She goes, how'd it go?
Yeah.
I said, now this is after she knows I've mentioned so far, Rick Springfield, Three Dog Night, who are three incredible singers.
Of course.
Marcy Levy, Rosemary Butler,
Right.
Mark Campbell with Jack Mack and the Heart Attack. And my comment to her was, I think I just heard the best singer I've ever heard in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, he is that good.
Wow.
And it blows my mind because when he sings, to hear this guy sing live, it blows my mind because when you hear him live in a live band in a PA, he sounds like a recording, the way his voice is. He's got that kind of command and that kind of control.
Yeah.
And that voice, he has that voice we were talking about as far as that radio sound.
Yep.
If anybody who has kids that were raised in the 80s and 90s, if you ever heard the theme song to the show DuckTales,
Of course.
that's Jeff singing that.
No kidding.
But that's his real tenor voice. He's got a gutsy, like R&B soul, Ray Charles, James Brown thing that will knock your socks off.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's got as a guitar player, his rhythms on guitar. There's three other guitar players I've worked with in my life that are like this, or maybe it's two. One is Chris Pinnock, who worked with Chet McCracken's band, and he replaced Terry Kath in Chicago. Andrew Kastner, he's the original guitar player from Jack Mack and the Heart Attack, and still with the band, and I work with them now.
Right.
And his rhythms are just, again, that sick pocket. So these four guys, as far as, rhythm playing on guitar, because being a drummer, you know what it's like when you got a guy who's just going, ramming eighth notes but with no feel and no tone. And you're like,
get out of the way.
Please. And all of a sudden when we're playing, either with the duo or the trio and it's time for a solo, sometimes Jeff will just sit there and pocket on the rhythm. And it just feels so good. And when we play with a duo, it's a drum machine, myself on bass and him on guitar.
Sure.
And he's just playing, but it feels so nice. You're like, it's great. So that's a fun band. We have all these different configurations. We do a lot of different stuff. Jeff and I write together, and we have some original material that's really, I think it's really good.
I'm definitely going to come see it.
Yeah. And that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. And Jack Mack and the Heart Attack.
Sure.
If you've ever seen the band,
I was in the park in Atlanta.
When they were playing, when the bomb went off. Oh,
I
wow.
was there.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've seen them at kind of obviously it has a bit of a thing for me, but.
Sure. Well, they were all laughing after seeing the movie. We did some gigs since the movie Richard Jewell came out.
Right.
And they're like, man, it's so weird to see an actor playing you.
Sure.
And then, but the footage in Richard Jewell on the Jumbotrons, that's the real live band.
Right.
But the live band in that is actors.
Oh, no kidding.
So they said it was really strange, but they saw them wearing what they were wearing,
Nice.
So, yeah.
As a bass player, drummers and bass players, we have this telekinetic thing, and it works or it doesn't. How do you handle it when you don't necessarily groove well with a drummer? Because that certainly happens.
Yeah. I find most people I end up playing with today are usually going to be people I can groove with.
Absolutely.
It's just because I fortunately have elevated to a place where I usually end up playing with just good quality people.
Of course.
Whenever something isn't really, really happening on that. I personally try to loosen them up
Yeah, that's a great idea.
and try to get some sort of rapport, ask them about what they do, where they live, where they go, what they did, what's this, what's that, how long you've been playing, is this your favorite kit? Do you have another kit? Whatever, just talk to them. And just like anything, I know in sales, if you want to sell yourself, talk about them.
Right.
So in the same way, it's like, talk about them. So, is this your main kit?
Right.
What's your favorite music? What were you weaned on? Where'd you cut your teeth?
I love that because the few bass players that I've run across that I don't necessarily feel good with are the ones that won't engage with me. And so I find myself struggling if I can't get them to tell me who they are and what they do and where they went to high school. I'm like you. I want to have that conversation so that we can have this conversation.
Right.
And if we can't have that, just the vocal conversation, then it's challenging, at least for me, to have the musical one.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. When people don't want to have the conversation, then sometimes they just go, okay, it's not going to work.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
There's, but I don't know. I think in as I mature, I learn ways to speak in constructive criticism.
Sure.
And even ask directly, hey, man, what do you think you and I could do to make this thing really groove?
That's fantastic.
What do I need to do for you? What would you like to hear out of me?
Sure.
Because that all of a sudden it takes the onus off of them. Like, hey, you're not grooving, so why don't you follow what I'm doing? I'm the bass player. Follow my groove.
Right.
It's like, no, it's just like, what would you like to hear from me? And then, oh no, man, you're fine. And a lot of times that could be what cracks the egg. And then they go, man, my arm's really hurting me and I'm not on it today. I'm sorry. And all of a sudden you go, no worries, man. We're all human.
Yeah, right.
It's okay. And then you show up at the gig and they're killing it.
Right.
Sure. So
any single piece of advice for drummers and bass players to work together? Is that it? To have the conversation?
Create rapport, have conversation, listen to each other like crazy. I think one of the most important things that as a rhythm section player that I learned was in the subdivision of a bar, learning to, one of the things I like to do is nail the one, and I can nail the three, but not as definitive as the one. Yeah. And then I can lay back on 2 and 4 to give it that much more space.
Sure.
And, for a drummer and bass player working together, it's just really listening. Obviously, listening to the kick is vital. Yeah. When I'm either in sessions or live, I want to hear the hat really loud.
Yeah.
Because that's my main subdivision. If there's 16th notes, I like to record and I like to hear the 8th of the 16th note because that just helps me subdivide the beat that much better. And I want to hear the kick. Right. Because the kick, I'm gonna lock with the kick and flow everything else with the snare and the hat mostly. Right. One of the things that I love to hear out of a drummer is living kick, snare, hat, and only go into a ride if it's really that necessary. Interesting. If it's really that necessary. And if it's not that necessary, why go?
Interesting.
Because I find the groove, if when I listen to records, 99.99% of records are kick, snare, hat.
Yeah, that's for sure, yeah.
So it's like, and in the same way, I honor the whole note. Right. Because a lot of times just hitting a whole note and letting it speak, or hitting a dotted half note and leaving that quarter note open. Yeah, right. Just makes the groove breathe.
Omar Hakim said that the funk, so many guys that play funk try to busy things up. And he said the funk doesn't live there. The funk lives in leaving out, especially the one on the bass drum. You pull the bass drum on one out, people fall over. That's what makes people dance, is when that's gone. Right. You pull that out strategically and suddenly you're a funky drummer. Right. I've lived by that.
Right.
a
Right. I mean,
fascinating
all
thing.
those kind of things happen that, and it's in the simplicity. And I love what I've heard Bernard Purdie say is stay out of the way.
Right.
Just stay out of the way.
Right.
I love his things. He said most of his fills start on the end of 3.
They do.
He's got a beat and a half. Ticka-dong.
Right.
And he's done.
Right. Right.
And it's like, it's beautiful.
It is.
And for me, some of the most quintessential grooves to listen to, if you're a drummer and or bass player, and especially a bass player, is listening to the tracks with Chuck Rainey
Oh gosh, yeah.
and anybody that Steely Dan uses.
Of
But
course.
things like Home at Last,
I
that
was thinking-
stuff is
It's
sick.
funny. I was thinking that song when you were saying that.
That is just sick.
Yeah.
The groove on that is so fat.
It is.
And then you listen to Josie, with just Jim Keltner and Chuck Rainey, and that is equally sick.
It is.
And it's like, it's just nonstop. Now, it's funny, thinking of great drummers and Steely Dan.
Yeah.
I went to high school with Jeff Porcaro.
Did you?
Yeah. He was a year behind me. And I'll never forget, this is always a great story. I remember having first period PE,
Sure.
and that's when marching band would be together.
Yeah.
And they'd be out on the field, and you'd hear
Right.
just a cadence going on, and then all of a sudden you hear the whistle blow. Porcaro, knock it off!
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, but yeah.
Well, I have 2 questions that I always ask my friends. The first one: do you have a Mount Rushmore of bass players? It's usually drummers. Do you have a Mount Rushmore? 4 guys,
4 guys?
or not guys?
Okay, yeah.
4 bass players.
Chuck Rainey,
of course.
Paul McCartney,
Oh yeah.
Jack Bruce,
No, of course. Yeah.
and Jaco Pastorius.
I was wondering if Jocko would be on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to leave him off.
Yeah. Now there's a whole bunch of other
course,
guys.
of course.
Victor Wooten. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, yeah.
Marcus Miller. Crazy good. But when you say 4 guys, Mount Rushmore, James Jamerson.
Right.
Any one of the 4 could be replaced by any of these
course,
other guys.
yes.
But as far as really dynamic influences on me,
Yeah.
the first bass I bought for myself was a Gibson EBO because I couldn't afford the EB3
Right.
that Jack Bruce
Right.
played. And it was between that and a 68 jazz bass.
Was it?
And the jazz bass was being sold by a little music store out in Woodland Hills called Ernie Ball Music.
No kidding.
But I decided I bought the EBO at another place, and then I wanted something better sound, and I loved the sound of Gary Sherwood's bass that was playing with Porcaro and those guys in high school, and he played a precision.
Yeah.
So I took my bass to where I bought it, and I said, "Can you put a P pickup in here?"
Yeah.
So he added the P pickup to the humbucking, and then I just barely used the humbucking, mostly used the P pickup all the time from then on.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that. Searching for that sound.
Yeah, and nowadays I love the feel of a jazz bass body. I like it better. And I love the way it sits when I don't have a strap.
Sure.
It sits exactly the same as if I do have a strap. So I really like that concept. But I play jazz basses with P pickups on the neck position. And a lot of times I live just on the P.
Sure.
Because sometimes it just calls for it. But
Right,
I
right.
like the blend because I get what I call a great little burp tone out of the neck pickup that just
Sure.
gives you that growl and grit.
Right.
And depending on what you're doing,
Yeah.
that's what you do.
Nice. And the last question, and it is the question I mentioned earlier. What is your favorite Rick Springfield song?
It's really hard for me to answer
Sure.
because I worked with him and he even played and we kind of started working out some of the stuff, but Keith Olsen insisted on using his guys and that's what he did. But we worked out Don't Talk to Strangers and I Get Excited and something else. So I like both of those. I think they're really good. I mean, the anthem, of course, is it, and I'm going to say it not because it's his anthem, but because it's such a well-crafted and brilliantly produced song. Keith Olsen did an amazing job. When I auditioned for Rick, I had this little JVC cassette player. It wasn't that little, but it was about, about the size of a laptop. And he says, yeah, can we go plug this in somewhere? I go, yeah. He goes, listen to the song. And we put a cassette in, he plays Jesse's Girl.
Of course.
And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it. And I was just with Helmet Boy, signed to Electro Asylum with Freddie DeMann as our manager. And I saw that just get shelved. And I hear this song and I go, if this ain't a hit, I quit.
Yeah, right.
And he goes, but listen to how the bass doesn't come in until the B section, but it comes in real subtle. And she's watching it with those eyes. And it just lays out. And then it just, when that chorus kicks in, it reminded me the first time when I heard it, when the chorus kicked in, it kicks in and gives the song the same lift that Honky Tonk Woman gets when the chorus kicks in and the bass finally comes in.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought of that, but you're
exactly
right.
And I was like, oh man, this is so well done. And then it breaks down again for the next verse. And then it goes someplace else for the bridge. So songwriting-wise, it's crafted really well, but I must pay homage to Keith Olsen's production on that. So I think if I have to pick one, it's going to be Jesse's Girl, but for that reason, the craftsmanship is so ultra fine, and it's amazing. I get excited. Don't Talk to Strangers, The Human Touch. There's a song that he does live, and he still does it. I went and saw him a few weeks ago. It's called She Called Me Bruce.
Yeah, well, I know the song, sure.
And it's hysterical.
It's hysterical.
Because it's his sense of humor.
Right.
And like I said, he likes to goof live.
Right.
And that's just who he is. He really has a fun time. And here he is in the song. He's alone with this girl, and she called me Bruce.
Right. That's great. I love it. You're the only person that I actually allow, and I'm using that word, to answer Jesse's Girl. I usually don't let people say Jesse's Girl because it's the anthem. I want to know if they know anything else, you see.
Yeah.
But you get a pass.
He's written a lot of great songs. Sure. When we did that Spirit of America Spectacular, we're watching the Beach Boys sound check. He leans over to me, he goes, one of these days, I hope to be like Brian Wilson up here doing all these songs. So I went and saw him at the YouTube Theater at the end of the month. Gotcha. So I went down there, and a great show, and he did really great. And so I sent him an email. I go, man, thanks. Great seats, great show. And I said, you're doing what you said you wanted to do, man. He had, at least an hour and a half of one hit after another, after another. And, and then he throws in She Called Me Bruce.
Of course.
In the midst of
That's fantastic. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
It's been fun. I've really loved having you here.
This is great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you all.
We got to play together sometime.
Yeah, I would love that, man.
We just got to make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be a lot of fun. So
yeah.
That does it for tonight's interview. Thanks a lot. Stick around. We got some more coming up in just a few minutes.
This episode is brought to you by Hearback Pro from Hear Technologies. The ability to hear yourself clearly in a recording or live situation is key to delivering your best, most creative performance. The Hearback Pro system, made up of a hub and individual mixers, allows performers in a session or on a gig the ability to dial in exactly what they need to hear in order to be their best. If you're looking for a solution to allow yourself or your clients to hear themselves better, check out Hearback Pro from Hear Technologies.
In the 2 years that I've been asking the Mount Rushmore question, I've never had anybody answer it as quickly as Richard did. Bam, 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 bam. He knew immediately who his Mount Rushmore of bassists were. And I think it's because he truly is a student of the bass, and he knew those influences and what those people really meant to him. Yes, there's always 1,000 musicians that we can all talk about, but Richard was like, bam, 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 bam. And I thought that was really impressive because I can't do that either. And I've been asked repeatedly, when I ask people that question, they then turn it back on me. And so I've honed mine, but it took me a minute to get it honed. And Richard, that's just incredible to me that you're so on top of your your Rushmore. That's really amazing. Jordan, Richard's son, you have Chet's blue kit, do you? I think you might need to bring that over, and we should film it, and do a little drumming. You should come on over. And Richard, it's really fun for me because I think we really should play together some. And he and I have talked about it a little bit. And the only reason we haven't is because I haven't made the time to do it yet with all the crazy that's going on. So we definitely need to make that happen. Richard, thank you so much for that. One of the things that I really took from this interview is his comments about building a rapport on stage, because very often, if you don't play on stage, you might not realize this, but sometimes we get caught up in what's over there on the TV across the bar while we're playing. Oh, yeah, oh, that's right. And suddenly we forget where we are, and we are not necessarily in the moment. I really do struggle, as I said, when I can't get the people on stage to interact with me and to give me some energy so that I can take some from them and give them some, and so on. And I think that Richard's commentary about how important it is to listen to each other and build that rapport and say, hey, how you doing? Is your dog feeling okay? Those things do matter, because that's what happens to make it feel better on stage. I really do truly miss that when it's not happening. It's a pretty important part of it. Justin Scheidling asked, what's your biggest pet peeve as a bassist? Richard's answer was pretty funny but real. A drummer who loses the groove while overplaying the kick drum and crashing the cymbals too much. I don't know if that's me or not. It could be. I do find it sometimes interesting to build through things with bass players and figuring out where we all sit together. I've actually honestly had to work on being that guy that doesn't overplay the kick drum and things. So that was good advice for me too. Thank you for that, Richard. Let's take a look over here. Charles saying, great guy, great interview. Yeah, he is a great guy. I've really thoroughly enjoyed having him. Charles, good to have you here tonight as well. Jordan, I can't believe that you have that kit, man. You play a lot of his cymbals too. No kidding. That's pretty killer, man. That's amazing. Toby, fun guest, super friendly. Yes, he was, absolutely. And so are you. You always are. It's been, let's see, what else do we have? I got so many comments over here, about 100 of them. It's hard to weed through them all. I'm reading them over there on the screen. The takeaway really, though, is that listening, being part of the musical conversation, that's really what it's all about. On stage, in the studio, in life. If you're always talking, then you're really not part of a conversation. You're just part of a noise. So if you take the time to listen to each other in life, on stage, in the studio, you're going to create a much more beautiful product. And with that, I'm going to say that we've got Stephen Kramer Glickman coming up next week. If you know Stephen, he's from the TV show Big Time Rush and the movie Storks. You will not want to miss it. It was a really fun time with Glickman. Be here next week, 9 p.m. Pacific. So it occurs to me that makes it midnight Eastern time. So it's actually a Tuesday show. Huh, how about that? No, it's a Monday night show, 9 p.m. Pacific time. That's how we're going to look at it. And until then, I hope that you have a great week, and we will see you in the next week with Stephen Kramer Glickman.